Here we finally are. The climax, 3 years in the making, has arrived with the hour-long Amphibia special event, All In. The penultimate episode of the series that left everyone screaming at their screens, "What the?" A giant mech fight? The planters standing off against the Herons that ate Sprig and Polly's parents. Darcy doing their best Benel impression. Someone other than Anne lost an arm. And so much more insanity. We're going to break down Amphibia's penultimate episode for all the biggest details that made it a larger-than-life spectacle. And to stay in the loop of all things Amphibia as we approach the end, be sure to subscribe to the Roundtable with notifications on so you never miss a video. And be sure to check out our new Amphibia-inspired 3 stars tarot card design over on Toondrip. Link in the description. This episode foregoes the traditional Amphibia theme song and title card entirely, favoring to flash a logo and display opening credits over the episode itself. A technique that's often used in anime whenever they need to fit more content into an episode, often in the season premiere or finale. Just like the other major episodes of the series, Reunion and True Colors, All In opens on a flashback, this time taking place the day before the girls got whisked away to Amphibia instead of the morning of. Anne, Sasha, and Marcy have the bright idea to hijack the morning announcements with puppies and K-pop. In particular, the song As If It's Your Last by Blackpink, which returns later in this episode as Anne goes toe-to-toe with Andrias' mech. Anne has her doubts behind the morality of this stunt, but of course Marcy and Sasha convince her to see it all the way through, something the principal calls Anne out on after busting the girls. As although she lets Sasha and Marcy off easy, a serious conversation is held with Anne. Principal Murphy recognizes that Sasha has superb leadership skills, and Marcy is insanely intelligent, so despite their hijinks, they're going to land on their feet in adulthood. But Anne feels aimless, letting herself be influenced by others because it's the easy thing to do. It's up to Anne to figure out who she is, to carve out her own path, to no longer go with what's always easy if it means compromising who she is as a person. This conversation really adds weight to the title of the series finale, The Hardest Thing, meaning whatever happens with Anne in that episode, her biggest decision will complete her character arc. In the present day, everyone is held prisoner in the castle's dungeon, Incredible style, scrambling to figure a way out while Andrias kicks off the invasion on Earth. One of the onlookers of the mayhem is none other than Pepper Ann, protagonist of the Disney series with the same name. Pepper Ann was a huge influence on Amphibia, so her inclusion here feels pretty full circle in its own special way. Darcy unleashes the dreaded Herons upon the streets of LA. The same Herons that killed Sprig and Polly's parents years ago, now controlled by spore collars. Amphibia decides to answer the question a lot of these story-driven cartoons pose to the audience. Where the hell is the military? By having them show up to combat the invasion to no avail. As to be expected, the Earth's forces are quickly curb-stomped by these otherworldly threats, in a sequence that harkens back to Independence Day. The military calls Mr. X for backup, and if you look at the speed dial list on his phone, you can see hubby, meaning he is indeed married, Terry, confirming Mr. X did begin to work with Anne's Earth allies after her and the planters went back to Amphibia, and Mickey D's. Because those 2 for $6 meals cannot be beat. Not sponsored. Polly apparently did make improvements to Frobo off screen, in between the episodes fixing Frobo and Escape to Amphibia. One of them being the ability to identify structures for weaknesses. And I love how we can see that this upgrade stems from Earth rather than Amphibia, due to the characters being surrounded by equations with an alphabet native to Earth. After the gang breaks free and somewhat sticks the landing, Olivia observes that Earth structures are very geometric, which is a fair observation when comparing it to Amphibia, especially the likes of Newtopia, where its structures and environment tend to be shaped like mushrooms and lily pads, with often unkempt vegetation just about everywhere, often varying in size. Hop Pop confirms the identity of the Herons as we're provided with a brief flashback of him driving off the beast on the fateful day they attacked Wartwood, leaving at least one scarred, forming the X pattern that's spotted on many characters throughout the series. The team combats against some of the robot soldiers as Mr. X and the Boonchoys join the battle. Mr. X states that they had a few weeks head start thanks to Anne's parents, confirming that the back half of this season has taken place over the course of about a month, and confirms that yes, Mr. and Mrs. Boonchoy managed to explain everything that's happened with Anne and Amphibia, convincing the government to help fight the good fight. We move to St. James Middle School to devise a counterattack. I've been waiting for Anne to come back here, and as Mr. X sets down a box on the table, we can see a paper pinned to the corkboard titled Moon Jiu-Jitsu, referencing a tweet that riffs on the lyrics to Fly Me to the Moon. Fly me to the moon, let me kick its fucking ass. Let me show you what I learn in my moon jujitsu class. Beautiful performance, I know. This alludes to the final battle of the series, coming next episode with the hardest thing, as we see that the core had implanted itself on the moon, launching it towards Amphibia as a way to exact revenge against its adversaries. This paper actually has 3 tears, representing Anne, Sasha, and Marcy, who will use their Calamity powers to face this threat head-on, Sonic Adventure 2 style. Shitposting as foreshadowing? This show has it all! Apparently crypto is still a priority, even in the midst of a deadly invasion. Something that disappoints Hot Pop, as he definitely comes across as an anti-crypto bro.
You can keep your millions in your digital carrots. The joy a real garden brings is priceless.
Elsewhere within the core, Marcy's being kept occupied Mabelland style after spending time completing dozens of puzzles. With a few Easter eggs within the pile, the ones that stuck out to me were the Millennium Puzzle from Yu-Gi-Oh!, a compass that features an illustration of Disney Castle, and a toy of Megatron. We get confirmation that the core is made up of dozens of esteemed newts, and not just Andrias' family, as a few cloaked, nameless faces are seen studying in a giant hall. They actually look pretty similar to the newts that briefly appeared in Andrias' flashback during True Colors. And we can tell these are actual minds of the core, and not just illustrations projected to please Marcy, as they, like Aldrich's initial appearance in this episode, appear with an orange glow, compared to the blue glow and glitch-like appearance the projections have. While Aldrich pitches Marcy her perfect fantasy world, distracting Wu from tapping into her blocked-off memories, notice that the core is observing everything from both Darcy's eyes and the eye on Andrias' crown, keeping tabs on every monitor. Back at the middle school, Polly unveils Frobo's final form, Frobo 2.0, complete with a sick purple and pink paint job that solidifies Frobo as a planter. And I love that Gundam-inspired design. And we can't forget the shooting star stickers that are identical to the iconic sweater worn by Mabel Pines in Gravity Falls. Overall, dope design. Sprig has retained Leaf's letter that he found at the end of Newts and Tights, having a feeling that it's very important, a suspicion that he would ultimately be validated in during the climax of this episode. He also expresses a desire to get this invasion over with so things can go back to normal, but he's defining the course of the last year as normal. He's expecting Anne to just hang around and go on Monster of the Week adventures with him. But Hop Hop tries to get Sprig to realize Anne deserves to go back home and just be a teenager after all of this. Something Sprig doesn't necessarily disagree with, but he's convinced that Anne will always be present in his life in a major way, setting the stage for an emotional goodbye in the series finale. The gang forms a strategy while Darcy is seen strategizing theirself, assigning robots to attack particular enemies, like an RPG, which includes a satisfying shot of Darcy typing, said by director Jen Strickland to indeed be an anime reference, personally reminding me of Promare. Andrias flashes back to the first time he met Marcy. Marcy having a broken leg, as her theme song Takeover confirmed, she tumbled down a flight of stairs thanks to her clumsiness, immediately upon her arrival in Amphibia. Andrias was immediately captivated by Marcy's presence, although taken aback by her suggestion of calling him Dreas for short, as it reminds him of his former friend, the only person who used to call him that. The core recognizes that Andrias has already formed a bond with Marcy and commands him to kill her, certain that she's a part of the Ohm's prophecy. Andrias manages to bargain with the hive mind by pointing out they have yet to retrieve the music box, and proposes a plan where instead of killing the girls, they'll siphon their powers away, just as we saw with the temples. Aldrich is pleased with this plan, and I just gotta say, that shot of him with the eyes of the core before being dragged away by Doc Ock was freaky. Definitely had me sleeping with the LEDs on. The Avengers had their little Battle of New York. Well, Amphibia has the Battle of Los Angeles. Something that probably has fewer casualties if we're being honest. And here's through the robots in her path with the aid of Domino 2 and Sprig, while Terry and Dr. Jan are on the streets of LA rescuing civilians, such as the couple that appeared throughout the background of Season 3A. The two drive past graffiti of Pickle and Peanut, a fallen titan of Disney XD, while Frobo and Polly light up some enemies. Hop Hop gets in on the action, passing by Sasha's street graffiti that appeared in Reunion and the Season 3 opening. But he's frozen in fear once he gets close to the Herons, an appearance that strikes fear into the entire family. Meanwhile, Sasha, Grime, Yunin, and Olivia infiltrate the castle, unknowingly welcomed by 3 cloakbots. The eyes of one used to transition back to the core, showing 2 moons, one of which being Amphibia's red moon, which may be a hint at the core's link to the satellite. Aldrich presents Marcy with replicas of Anne and Sasha, who transform and don outfits identical to Link in Zelda Breath of the Wild and post-time skip Beetlejuice in Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Marcy tries apologizing for her immense guilt, but the replicas assure her everything is fine, continuing to manipulate her memory from the truth. The Boonchoys are cornered by the Herons, giving the planters the push they need to face their fears and take action. I loved this moment, as despite being paralyzed by the trauma of these Herons taking away family, they put everything on the line to protect the family they do have left, the found family. The people who returned the favor of taking Anne in by taking them in despite the insanity of it all. Everything with the planters in this episode honestly had me moved to tears, especially with what happens next. A lot of notable LA buildings appear throughout this episode, which is kind of surreal for me since I live here now. Can't believe they made LA from Amphibia a real place. But I gotta point out the brief return of the Wattai Temple. After destroying the Spore Collars, the planters do something I found to be absolutely beautiful. That goofy-ass family hunting dance. When this first popped up in Ant Hunter, I didn't expect for Leaf to be the one who invented it, as we learned in The Core and the King. And I definitely didn't expect that to have incredible, unforeseen payoff here. I love Amphibia so damn much. Instead of avenging Sprig and Polly's parents with some grand epic kill, Amphibia follows through on the show's positive messages of valuing life and protecting the environment we're given by having the planters tame the wild animals that gave them all these emotional deep wounds, giving them another chance by extension. It's a heartwarming resolution to one of the show's saddest storylines, and I just love it so much. Bonus points for the way they take out the Herons being a Star Wars reference. And before we continue, this would be a wonderful time to do our second to last Amphibia fan spotlight. Roll it.
Now I find myself in the wild unknown with the frogs and toads, and I'm far from home. But there's so much here to discover. One after another, hop into the adventure. Gotta rivet, jump on it. Baby, I find so much here to discover. Myself in the wild unknown with the frogs and toads, and I'm far from home. But there's so much here to discover. One leap after another, hop into the adventure. Gotta rivet, jump on it. Baby,
Darcy, angered by their invasion being foiled, demands Andrias to bring Anne to them immediately, stating that if needed, Andrias should go as far as breaking her legs, which is pretty brutal. And with one episode left, some viewers have read into this as potential foreshadowing. Darcy also threatens Andrias' admission into the core should he fail, which is something I don't think he minds losing at this point. I thought Sasha, Grime, Olivia, and Yunin taking on the Cloakbots was an interesting choice, as the Cloakbot we became familiar with in Season 3A only faced off against Anne, her parents, and the Planters, so none of these warriors are aware of a Cloakbot's moveset or arsenal, but they're much more capable of taking them out due to their weapons and fighting experience. And I loved how Yunin and Olivia ended up taking them on 2v3. Sasha and Grime face off against Darcy, who decides to take off the boxing gloves by unveiling their scythe. Some work in this sequence was provided by director Joe Johnston, who of course worked on Steven Universe, stating on Twitter that this sequence very much reminded him of Spinel. Andrias makes himself known, arriving on Earth's battlefield in the Diplossaurus. a mech that was being developed for Earth's invasion back in the Core and the King, resuming production in Old Town Road as Andrias' robots began mining resources for the mech outside Proteus. While the Diplosaurus is named after a dinosaur, its head is actually based after the Diplocalus, an extinct amphibian. Andrias requests a rematch from Anne, proposing quite the ultimatum. If Anne can defeat him, the invasion will be called off, but otherwise, LA will be blown to smithereens. Also, why the hell is this guy just casually snapping his selfie during an invasion? Go home to your family, you're in danger! Anne has a beautiful moment of self-reflection, stating she did what was easy and let people walk all over her because she didn't love herself. Not fully. It's only because of the time she spent with the planters that she was able to embrace her flaws and love the person she's becoming. Anne meets Andrias atop of the US Bank Tower. And I love Andrias' monologue before their battle. Keith David killed it here. One of the onlookers of this rematch is Maggie, Anne's bully from Reunion, blown away that the girl she used to look down upon is now literally above her, standing tall as someone who's found herself. There seems to be a huge possibility that this episode takes place around the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, as Principal Murphy appears, reacting to the showdown from inside her home, which is now only completely boarded up, but is full of supplies such as toilet paper, chicken soup, and Windex. All things that were selling out everywhere when the pandemic began. It looks like Murphy was fully anticipating an apocalypse and acted accordingly. Anne has an insane battle that feels like a blend between Man of Steel and multiple Sonic games, as it's pretty common for Super Sonic to come in just in time to fight the big scary mech. We also have Super Anne dodging missiles, as teased in the Season 3 opening. Darcy takes on Sasha and Grime, channeling their inner Maka Alburn. And I love the touch of shaky anime cam in this fight. It adds that much more weight to their battle, which I might say was pretty intense, as we got one of the most shocking scenes of the series. Grime attempts to distract Darcy while Sasha goes for the generator, a move that Darcy not only sees coming, but can easily intercept, as they're in control of both Marcy's body and the robotic tentacles in the room. Darcy manages to catch Sasha with a dagger, cutting right through the back of Waybright's leg. And right when Darcy is able to dive right into the kill, it seems as if it's a wrap for Sasha, until Grime makes a sacrifice of his own and pushes her out of the way, getting his arm sliced off in the process. That's right, all that countless foreshadowing wasn't for Anne, Marcy, or Sasha, but for Grime. And after the Toad gives his tragic anime death speech, even though we know he's okay because it's just an arm and he's a cartoon Toad, Sasha gives everything she has to defeat Darcy, slashing through anything the hive mind throws at her. Back to Anne versus Andrias, while the Mad King taunts Anne with typical villain monologue, projecting onto Anne with his claims that everything she loves will crumble. Anne is not having any of it, exposing Andrias for shutting himself out from the rest of the world, making himself an evil tyrant who feels nothing. All the while, Boonchoi summons Tritonio's family sword, finally giving us the Super Anne sword action we've been craving. Unfortunately, Andrias did not appreciate this slander whatsoever, pummeling Anne into the ground as she depowers in the process. Mr. X decides to pump her up by unveiling speakers hidden throughout the streets of Los Angeles, blasting As If It's Your Last by Blackpink, functioning as an insert song to this next portion of the battle. An insert song being special tracks played in anime, typically with vocals, during a pivotal moment. We jump back to Sasha versus Darcy, Sasha landing a good hit that causes Darcy to bleed green blood, likely a result of the process Andrias put Marcy through to create Darcy in the first place. The Corn forms a tornado consisting of Anne and Marcy projections, taunting Sasha as she combats them. Something that called to mind a few boss fights in Kingdom Hearts 2, at least for me. Sasha seems to fall for good, while within the core, fake Sasha and Anne tell Marcy they're down to do whatever she wants, causing her to remember the events of true colors, and accept the reality that in truth, Anne and Sasha don't want what Marcy wants, and that's okay, but forcing them to follow her dreams isn't. Aldrich is angered by this change of heart, but Marcy stands tall, rejecting this fantasy and embracing that even though the future is scary, change is necessary. After Anne smacks Andrias into the top of the building and strikes a Studio Gainax pose, her powers unfortunately begin to fade, putting Anne back on the ropes. Mr. X notices Sprig drop Leaf's letter, and his glasses begin to decipher its invisible ink. Sprig begins to read the letter, and is prompted to deliver it right to Andrias. Leaf's letter reveals that after she left the box on Earth, she founded Wortwood and created the identity known as Lily Planter, falling in love with someone new. but never forgetting the love and good times she shared with Andrias and Beryl. I kinda feel bad for this guy. Like, my dearest Andrias? She was not over him, homie. You were the countryside rebound. That's gotta be tough.
Or, it's just platonic love, but this is funnier.
Leaf doesn't want Andrias to close himself off from the rest of the world, but to welcome any new friends who may wander into his life. This scene was super anime, especially that shot of Marcy doing the iconic turnaround and smile. The music also reminded me of Undertale greatly, which I know has a soundtrack that Matt Brawley favors. Andrias breaks down and loses the will to fight, shedding immense tears.
But you're too late. The things I've done, the pain I've caused, there's no going back!
And inadvertently saving Sasha's life as Darcy departs their battle to see an unpleasant sight unfold before them. Darcy then breaks out a move that seems as if it was intended to assimilate Andrias into the core through his crown, or at the very least, force him to fight through their influence. This buys Anne enough time to power up once more, while Sasha uses this distraction to sever Darcy from the core's connection, affirming that she's not the control freak Darcy saw in Marcy's memories. Darcy has finally been defeated, with a blood-curdling scream that was apparently recycled from Marcy's scream in the episode Olivia and Unit. This brings us to the moment that caused my jaw to drop, as Andrias pulls what I can only describe as a Legend of Korra crossed with Dragon Ball. Hearing Leaf's words, the king makes himself vulnerable and completely surrenders, opening his heart by allowing Anne to tear directly through it, just like how Goku tore right through King Piccolo's chest towards the end of the OG Dragon Ball series, leaving Andrias in a state that's identical to how Cloakbot ended up at the end of Ant's Terminator, missing an arm and a leg. The power of foreshadowing! Andrias begs Anne to save Marcy before it's too late, with her and Sasha reviving Marcy with love and tears. The three reconcile, as Anne lets Marcy know that time nor distance can take away the memories they have with one another, causing Sprig to reflect on his own friendship with Anne. Also, I guess Unit and Olivia beat those Cloakbots. Fuck yeah. Also, how is Grime not in excruciating pain? Cartoon Toad logic. The helmet that controlled Marcy escapes, likely going off to activate the moon's big fall. But who knows? It could always possess one more character, leading to someone having to sacrifice himself to defeat the core once and for all. Looking at you, Hapadaya! Marcy and Sasha want the Boon Choice to let their parents know that they're okay, not only calling back to the letter Anne mailed off at the end of Froggy Little Christmas, but sets up their first and only appearance in the series finale. Everyone returns to Amphibia, where the rebellion is still duking it out against Andrias' forces, so they didn't retreat for good, as many people feared. Sasha remarks that they didn't even need the prophecy, spoke too soon, something that causes Marcy to bug out because, of course, she's gonna want to know more about her grand destiny. Sprig and Anne talk about what awaits them in the future, but it's derailed by Sprig noticing that the moon is getting closer to Amphibia, leaving us on our final chilling cliffhanger and the end credits, which you probably didn't see considering it wasn't on the TV premiere, as the music box plays the end credits theme. As always, these were just our thoughts on this action-packed episode, and we want to know yours. What did you think? What was the highlight of the episode? Where do you think the helmet went off to? And do you believe Sasha and Marcy are about to go super? Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, or tweet them at Roundtable Vids. And for more of my own thoughts, you can find me at Osher Thoughts. Be sure to check out Toon Drip and our new Amphibia-inspired design. And if you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. See ya!